Well, welcome to the first of 3 episodes in this new webinar series from Genesys, Empowering Contact Centers, Innovations in AI-Driven CX. I'm your host, David Hull, the Editor-in-Chief here at Silicon UK. In a world where customer and employee expectations are rapidly evolving, staying competitive means adopting solutions that meet and exceed demands. Genesys is driving this transformation, leveraging AI to enhance personalization, improve efficiency, and enable empathy at scale. Genesys is a global cloud leader in AI-powered experiences. Genesys is a global cloud leader in AI-powered experience orchestration. Genesys continues to innovate and have recently been positioned by Gartner for the 10th year as a leader in the 2024 Gartner Magic Quadrant for contact centers as a service for its ability to execute completeness of vision. Genesys empowers more than 8,000 organizations in over 100 countries to improve loyalty and business outcomes by creating the experiences for their customers' employees. Through Genesys Cloud, the AI-powered experience orchestration platform, Genesys drives the future of CX in organizations for all sizes as they provide empathic, personalized experience at scale. Whether you're a business leader, a customer service professional, or someone passionate about the future of call center technology, this series of webinars is designed to provide actionable insights that harness AI to strengthen trust, loyalty, and long-term success. Now, in this first episode of this new series, Transforming CX with AI, focuses on 2 powerful tools reshaping customer support and empowering agents. The first is Agent Copilot, and the second is Virtual Agents. With these AI-driven technologies, Genesys helps contact center agents navigate the complexities of customer interactions, effortlessly enhancing efficiency and creating meaningful connections with customers. Agent Copilot provides real-time support for automatically surfacing relevant knowledge, automatically relative tasks, and recommending new best actions based on customer needs. Virtual agents support it by handling routine inquiries, freeing up human agents to be more complex cases. Together, these tools transform the contact center experience by reducing manual effort, empowering agents to focus on what is truly important, trust and satisfaction. This webinar will cover 3 questions demonstrating how Agent Copilot and Virtual Agents combine to streamline processes, empower agents, and enhance the overall customer journey. Well, I'm really delighted today to be joined by Steve Barrett, the AI Experience Orchestration for EMEA. Welcome, Steve.
Good afternoon. Welcome all.
Well, thanks for joining us, Steve. I think this one is first in the series, of course. So we're kicking this one off for Genesys. Very interesting set of webinars, I feel. It's an interesting technology you guys have built, and of course we're always talking about AI. But this one is interesting in that it's going to be looking at how call centers in particular are using that kind of technology. I've already mentioned really a little bit about Genesys, but maybe a little bit more about the company. And I'd also like to get a little bit background from you, Steve. Maybe what your journey has been to Genesys to date.
Cool. Yeah. So Steve Barrett. I've been at Genesys for almost 3 years now. My background has kind of always been in sort of contact centers and telecoms. And a number of years ago, I realised AI is absolutely going to be the future, whether we like it or not. And decided, I actually want to come and join Genesys. So I did my best to make sure there was a role available at Genesys. So kind of almost headhunted myself into Genesys.
Okay, right.
So been loving it ever since.
Excellent. Now it's interesting, isn't it, that AI is kind of permeating lots and lots of businesses, absolutely, and a lot of business leaders clearly are trying to figure out what's it mean for us. No matter what business or industry, category, well, it doesn't matter what you're in, really. AI is going to touch you absolutely. Now, that's cool. We're talking about a couple of things, aren't we? Agent Copilot in particular. I think I'd like to get maybe a little bit of context. We're talking about a couple of things today. Could you give us I guess, an overriding view of what those actually are? And I guess why a contact center leader really should be paying attention to those 2 pieces of technology, just so we can set the scene for our viewers, and then we can maybe unpack a little bit more detail as we go through our conversation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I suppose if you think about all of us are customers of some sort in our day-to-day lives. I think with Genesys have conducted a number of reports, and I think it's about 81% of people will try and self-serve whenever it is they're trying to engage with their provider or where they're going to buy some goods and services.
Okay.
Then, if they're not able to do that, they might go on. So it might be on an authenticated portal, might be on the website, might be on the mobile app. Then, if they can't get the answer, sometimes they'll go and try something on social to see whether there's an answer to their query that they're trying to resolve. And almost calling becomes the last thing that they end up wanting to do to the contact centre.
Yeah.
By which time, the potential customer's a bit frustrated that they've had to do that, and then having to explain to the agent when they eventually manage to get hold of them as to who they are, what they've been trying to do. And actually, they become quite frustrated. So it's quite difficult for the agent to then start delivering a fantastic customer experience,
of course,
an empathetic experience, and then focusing on how they can provide the best service to that customer at that given moment in time, where they're almost frustrated.
That's interesting, though, isn't it, Steve? That we all want to do self-service initially. Maybe a few years ago, maybe it wasn't the case, was it? Well, I want to speak to a human straight away. I want to pick the phone up, use your landline, and I want to speak to a human and resolve my issue. How far we've come away from that is quite interesting, isn't it? And you're absolutely right. By the time I've had 3 or 4 different touch points to try and reach maybe a human or at least resolve my issue, how do you do that? And yes, when you finally get to maybe a call center or a human, are you finding also that the particularly Agent Copilot, of course, is an absolutely essential tool to diffuse maybe that what could be quite a highly emotional state? It's an interesting way of using an AI, or at least using a digital tool to do something which is, I guess, on a social level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the benefits customers have by using the Genesys experience orchestration service is that we can start to monitor and track my journey as a customer across all these different touch points. And actually be listening to social media as to potentially what my attitudinal data is about a particular brand or a service that I'm consuming. So by Genesys tracking all of my interactions, when I then come through to the agent, whether it's over a live chat or over a phone call, then we can deliver all that insight and all my journeys to the agent, then all of a sudden they can quickly deliver a personalised, empathetic experience to me. So we can say, "Oh, David, thanks for calling. I can see, I can see why you're now routed through to me and why you're interacting with me. I can see you're trying to do A, B, and C. How can I help you, David?" So Copilot can be delivered to, using Copilot over voice or digital will absolutely kind of start to deliver that personalized experience to the agent and to the customer to make it far easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone is trying to make that personal connection, isn't it? We're trying to understand really what a customer, really what they want to achieve, and do that in the quickest and most efficient way possible. Because that's exactly what we all want to do. We don't want to be on these kinds of calls for forever. If we can avoid it, everyone has that experience. Do you also find that using these kinds of systems also gives businesses a massive advantage with, I guess, how they then view customers in the 360? They can then see, yeah, absolutely. We've spoken to Steve 3 or 4 times. This is the outcomes. This is what's happened. We've looked at that data, and ultimately, does that then feed back into systems like Copilot, for instance, and virtual agents, and infinitely makes them better and more useful to call center agents. So when I call again, they absolutely have all that information available to them.
Absolutely. And again, if you think about, our journeys as customer, and then for the organization, you might have me down as a customer in 5 or 6 or 7 different applications for varying reasons. You think about, from a retailer, you might have an order management system, you might have a stock system, you might have a CRM system of some sort and contact center. And to your point earlier, we all tried to self-serve, and I think COVID was a big influence of
Yes.
that, because organisations had to quickly go and buy self-service channels because people couldn't go to an office. So
There's no other way of doing it. Yeah.
and so there's now all these other kind of little point solutions out there, which have expanded over time because customers don't want to take them away. So you might have all my detail across all these different systems of record. So actually providing a great experience to me is challenging and will be different across all of those channels. So actually, by taking all of these different all these different interaction channels and orchestrating it all through to Genesys, we can start to hook into all your different systems of record.
Yeah.
We know it's David. We know you've bought something. We know you're a VIP customer. We know you're a regular traveller. You're a VIP banking customer. Whatever it happens to be, we can pull data from lots of different systems of record and deliver that to the agent in the desktop. And then kind of that can either be our Genesys interface, it could be a Salesforce type interface, it could be a Microsoft interface. There's a whole magnitude of interfaces you can use, but the end game being it's a single desktop empowered by AI and with you as a customer. And therefore, when I come through to the agent, yes, I've got all that information. But in terms of learning from that, Copilot will surface knowledge to me based on the interaction. And that might be pulling it just from a Genesys knowledge base. It might be other knowledge bases where you've got product information or returns information, process information. And so we're starting to kind of push information in and out of Genesys to other systems. It might be marketing systems as well. So you can start to leverage a lot more of not just one customer journey, but lots of customer journeys and how they interact with you, and use that for marketing, for campaigns.
I think that's the goal, just, isn't it? That's what every business's kind of end game is. How can we be a better business for our customers, and what does that mean? A lot of that means more information, more data. Absolutely. It's very good that these systems connect with a wide range of different data sources. So I write on my pad, siloed data. That's always been an issue for a lot of businesses. But I think particularly in customer service, of course, if you can integrate as many of all of those systems you outlined, Steve, as you can, feed those back into maybe a common interface. Could be Genesys, could be, as you say, could be Salesforce. The power that it then gives you as a business is quite amazing, and it really hasn't been possible before. I mean, do you feel when you're speaking to your customer base that you put these kind of systems in, and it's really amazing what they can do, because then it becomes a strategic tool for developing your business forward, doesn't it? It's not just let's do a really good job when Steve calls me. Let's do a really good job in the future, and what's that future going to look like? And these tools allows us to build that.
Absolutely, and it allows you to completely start transforming your organisation and reducing all the different touch points that potentially we have as a customer.
Absolutely.
And then starting to realise actually there's common symptoms or common interactions. And actually, because it's now we can orchestrate all that and see all that, you can quickly go and execute some changes to, again, stop customers having to actually contact the contact centre and do more self-serve with things like the virtual agent. So we can quickly see, Steve goes on this journey. When he gets here, he has to drops out of our kind of containment process and ends up speaking to us or having a live chat with us. We can then start to realise, actually, with a virtual agent, we can have more conversational. I might be asking 2 or 3 different things like we're talking now. With a traditional kind of bot, it's quite hard to do that. It's a bit of a flow.
Absolutely.
So the virtual agent can kind of understand more of that conversation, contain me more. And then when I do, again, need that specialist niche information, which only potentially a human can give because it's something outside of the compliance process that you've set in place.
Of course.
All of that is delivered to the agent based on that full contextual awareness. And so it might just be a one-off for me, and that be that anomaly. But there might be lots of those journeys. We can quickly go and react to those and put in a quick process to stop me having to escalate to an agent to allow me to self-serve and get on with my other things that I'm trying to do.
I see. So ultimately, you feel that these kinds of tools allows you to build an absolutely more efficient business. Absolutely, the potential there to reduce costs, of course, but I think the ultimate thing is to look at absolutely ROI. Obviously, when you're making an investment in these kind of systems, but I feel it's also, I don't know if you also look at this with your customer base. It's also a differentiator in the marketplace. Yeah, if you have a really good experience with a company, you're going to go back. Clearly, that's just human nature, of course. You can do really well on that first or second touch point. Then you have a huge advantage for branding and particularly for differentiation in the marketplace. I often look at if you do something extremely well for a customer, then the advocacy that flows from them is almost it's priceless, because that's that kind of thing you can't buy. But what you can do is put in systems to allow that kind of relationship to develop. And it seems to me things like Agent Copilot is absolutely using the technology we have today to move that towards that kind of close relationship where you get better advocacy, differentiation in the marketplace, and really does raise your brand awareness.
Exactly. And I think, we've conducted a few reports over the last 12, 18 months, and two that stick out for me in terms of sort of facts and figures.
Yeah.
31% of customers have stopped using an organization after one bad experience.
Yeah.
Okay. Or one bad interaction, rather. Mm-hmm. That interaction could be across a plethora of different channels that, I've tried to use as a consumer.
Indeed.
So you think, well, that's not too bad. But it's over 80% of then customers have moved away after 3 bad experiences.
Okay.
So, those other 70% that stay, 80% of those, it's 3 bad experiences and you go away. I joined when I was at university a long time ago, don't want to show my age. I signed up for a particular high street bank. And then probably about 10 years ago, I just had no end of trouble when I had to interact with them.
Okay.
I honestly can't remember what they were, but I will never be going back to that high street bank ever again, just because I've got that bad experience in my mind. Yeah. And so customers tend not to come back.
No, I've read that all the time. That if a piece of advertising or whatever gets you to say switch a brand, you won't go back, no matter what they try. You won't, because you've made that decision and you will not go back. And that's a cautionary tale, I think, for getting things right the first time, because that 30%, that's a large number. That's a huge number if it's one touch before you've lost someone. So if you can put something in place that connects all of your data together, it gives you your people in your organization the information they need. I'd like to talk a little bit about that in a second. That's a very powerful foundation to build upon, it seems to me. That if you can do that with the tools that we now have available, that really does give you an advantage. And it certainly gives you an advantage over maybe businesses which are still struggling to understand what that means for their businesses. If you can do that very quickly, I'd assume you also speak to a lot of companies would say, well, Steve, what's this all mean for us? And how fast are we going to do this? I would imagine your response is, well, as quickly as you can. Because it's a speeding train, guys, and you need to jump on and make these changes now if you want to really develop your business into not the long distant future, to develop into the near future, because that's really where we're talking, aren't we? With these kinds of tools, it's what does customer service look like tomorrow, next week, next year, not in 5 or 10 years' time.
Yeah, and those that we're seeing are excelling are doing this now. So it's not a case of if we're going to do it, but when we're going to do it.
When we're going to do it.
And the benefit you have, we're in a kind of moment in time where actually there's lots of AI which you can quickly deploy and start to realize a lot of value and a lot of benefit to customer experience, increasing revenue, reduced operational costs. And you can do a lot of these things without a great deal of integration to systems of record. You can start to kind of glean information about the customer's journey.
You can begin, absolutely.
And then when I do get to speak to or engage with one of the agents, the Copilot will then kick in to surface knowledge to the agent. and it's contextual to that conversation. So your agent doesn't now have to spend weeks and weeks of onboarding and updates to training. Focus your efforts on building a knowledge repository with the right information about goods returns or sales policies,
whatever it may be,
whatever it happens to be. And then your agent can be focused on delivering great customer experience, and Copilot is giving them the information to assist that customer regardless of what they're asking.
Every time. Yes, so an interesting one. An element of I think the system that you guys have built is best action guidance. Now, I'm assuming, as I understand that, is that the agent can then use data or information to make a decision, or at least it gives them a prompt to do something if a certain scenario or a certain conversation begins. Am I understanding that correctly? Is that what best action guidance is for Genesys?
Yeah, so it does. I suppose there's two answers to your question. So whilst we're talking, the Copilot will be listening to that interaction and will surface knowledge to the agent based on the conversation.
Okay.
Now, it might be, for argument's sake, you were saying, actually, I want to put my car in for a repair.
Yeah.
So the next best action might be, we need to fill out a form to put your car
and so on.
in.
Of course.
Now, we've collected your data already, so I know it's David Howell, and you've got a particular vehicle, and you're trying to do the service. If we've cleaned all that, we can take that information and push that into the form. And then it will be, okay, I need to ask you these 2 or 3 other things, David, to help go through that process and complete that form. So the Copilot will assist the agent with, right, here's the form you need to fill in.
Yeah.
I've captured all the basic information.
Okay.
Ask these other few questions, and then that process will be done. And then it can kind of send that off to whatever system of record it needs to do for the booking system for that car. It might be then you say, I want to do something else as well. So it might be you say, I want to buy a new car as well.
Okay.
Whilst you go to the car dealership. I listened to that interaction. Right, I'm going to book you a car salesperson appointment. Again, I've captured lots of information around you, and then can go through that booking process for that, and then send that off.
That's very, very powerful, isn't it? Because it's listening to the conversation. So, this is now an element here, or here, or here. Does it also capture that data, and then does it actually record that information? Not recording as the audio, I'm sure it does anyway. But does it then understand? Does it have an intelligent aspect to that, where it says, okay, you were obviously servicing your car, you were thinking about a new one. We'll have a look at that information, and then what might be good for you. So it prompts the salesperson, so they're ready and waiting, and haven't got to ask me a load of questions which maybe I've already been asked before. That, for instance, that kind of frustrating situation, that kind of thing. And also, if it's also listening to say, okay, we need to fill obviously a form out for, say, servicing, is the system intelligent enough to see where information is missing? Or we can't move forward if there's no email address, there's no phone number. Is it intelligent enough to be able to realise that we can't move forward? Again, giving us this idea of best action guidance, unless that information is correct before it moves forward. Again, that's great for data, so there's no holes in your database.
Yeah, so there's, I suppose, yes is the short answer. There's a couple of ways you might want to do it. So you don't want to force something to happen if you're not going to get that answer. So
no, absolutely not. No.
Ask David for his email address.
Yeah.
Or it might just be verify David's email address because we might have you on record already. We might have a duplicate of you. So it might be a valid reason for asking for
absolutely.
It can also be used. We're launching a new functionality for compliance next year, and that would be especially useful for financial services or regulated environments to make sure you go through these 5 or 6 points before you kind of go off and do something else. So before you give me a loan, for argument's sake, or an approval for a loan, you need to make sure you do these 5 or 6 things. As a prerequisite before we can take you any further.
Okay. Yeah.
So
and that also applies to compliance. So it would be a case of do this, this, and this. And if you don't do that, you're not compliant. We're not going to allow you to do the 4th or the 3rd or whatever the action is before you've before you've completed this, because we know you have to be compliant.
Yeah, and it might be that the information is not correct. So I think you asked, how do we capture all this information?
Yeah.
So yes, we capture all that interaction, whether it's a live chat or a phone call. And then you can copy that at the end of the interaction as a summary of that interaction and put that into a system of record or multiple systems of record. You might have it, you might want it in 5 or 6 different places. So it might be then that it flags to somebody in the back office admin, actually, we need this additional information, like an up-to-date driving license copy,
for instance.
So it could be we trigger an action to send an SMS or a WhatsApp to Steve to say we need the latest driving license from you. I could upload that, saves an agent getting engaged. I could speak to the virtual agent. But again, I might want to speak to a human being because for whatever reason, I send that photo ID, speak to the agent, and the agent can say, I've got everything that I need to know. But actually, we need these other 2 or 3 things from you as well, Steve.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's empowerment, isn't it? That's empowering agents to be absolutely more efficient, more proactive, absolutely, because they have the data. I imagine even today, I think a lot of people in call centers, maybe they feel a little bit out of control because they don't have the information. Yeah, they think, well, yes, I'd like to help you, but I can't because I can't access sales, for instance, that kind of silliness. Or why can't you access that? Yeah, why can't you tell me what my ordered value was 3 days ago, for instance? I know what it is, so how come you don't know? These kinds of things. Is that where again another thing I was reading about with Copilot is also embedded knowledge as well. Maybe a little bit does that then build on really what we've been talking about recently about best action? If best action is going to be based on data and knowledge, so is that kind of the next layer that you've built into the system to allow embedded knowledge to be available? That's really what we're talking about, and that then allows more intuition and gives call center operatives the confidence to be able to access this information, make decisions, and ultimately you and I are happy bunnies.
Yeah. So natively within Genesys, we have a knowledge repository.
Okay.
So from that knowledge repository, you can do a number of things with that. So one is it feeds the Copilot technology, but it can also be used to feed the website.
Okay.
It can be, so you can go into the search area of a website, so where you typically have a sort of frequently asked questions. It's quite often quite static. Actually, if you make it free form, then we can actually ask a very specific question, like, can I take a buggy onto this particular journey I'm going on an aeroplane?
Sure.
Is it included in this particular flight? Or can I, take my golf clubs or sporting goods? You can kind of ask, it can be more conversational. So you can build that knowledge within the website. It can be then used on the authenticated site, so there might be a bit more compliant information that you want to put on there.
Of course,
and then that same knowledge is used to feed the agent when they're interacting with you.
Where does that data come from? Is it a case that the actual agent itself can ingest various types of data? Or is it the case that, if you need to, you can build that database from scratch, because it can be bespoke for you. If you're a highly specialized business, for instance, say finance, you can absolutely do that, of course, because it will be a highly specialized database that feeds that kind of knowledge back to the front end, which your operatives are looking at.
Yeah, we find that a lot of customers have got, if you think about in financial services, they've got probably years and years of information which needs to be stored. Same with retailers, but as they bought different brands, they might have different processes for those different brands that they bought. So actually, rather than taking all that knowledge and putting it into Genesys, what we can start to do is by switching Copilot on to begin with, start to listen to the interactions, and then go, actually, let's build some knowledge, because 80% of interactions are actually quite standard information. We could build quite quickly. And then you don't need to worry about importing all these different databases of knowledge that you've built up over the years. Still potentially keep those. You can ingest them into Genesys if you need to do so.
Yeah.
We have this capability where you can talk to third-party knowledge repositories as well.
Okay.
Because you might have just something you've built up over the years. So there isn't a one answer, but knowledge is what us as customers, when we go to self-serve, we're searching for something which has been stored.
Yep.
A website, whether it's a knowledge base or on SharePoint.
It's interesting though, isn't it, that we're now in a situation where, in effect, Genesys can be the, I guess it could be the hub, can't it? It sits in the middle, and then you can basically build on top of that. If it has to be a specialized data, absolutely. If you need to reach out to an external database, which is very useful for you for whatever it may be, you can absolutely do that, because again, it's building bespoke systems for your business. If you are a specific call center that is serving financial services, for instance, you can reach out to certain things, like you say, loan applications, mortgage applications, these kinds of specialized pieces of information you need to give to your people. And it's great that, again, this hub for is Genesys itself, and then you really feed that with whatever you need to. And over time, that level of intelligence and usefulness just increases, because more information is very useful. And as you say, over time, particularly from I guess the sharp end when you're speaking to customers, tracking that information over time, that's the gold dust. Because when you called us 4 months ago and you had this issue, or you bought this, then you're talking about buying this. Actually, that does not work with that. And I know that because my screen tells me it doesn't work with that, for instance. That kind of thing is really wasn't possible before, was it? It just wasn't.
And we've got integrations to touched on. We've got a strategic relationship with Salesforce and one with ServiceNow.
Yeah.
And ServiceNow is very much kind of in the sort of ticketing support area.
Indeed.
And then they've got some clever things they can do with fixes. So we can kind of use all that, what's going on from a case management to feed into the agent Copilot desktop as well.
How do you approach security? Because I guess a lot of the information, particularly talking about financial services, maybe healthcare. These are quite sensitive, aren't they? I don't think any of us would like to have that information exposed to someone that doesn't really have access to it. So how do you handle that? How do you handle sort of the security and ethical considerations, particularly when you're maybe building the data which then feeds back into Genesys, again, knowledge models, and also what Copilot is delivering to say a call center user? Are there ways that you can set levels of privacy, for instance, that can't be that you can only go so far with this information before you have to maybe ask a permission, or these kinds of things to safeguard what could in some instances be quite sensitive information.
Yeah. So Genesys, we support many highly regulated organizations across financial services. I think 25% of our customers are in financial services. Same with retail. There's lots of financial utilities.
Indeed.
So there's lots of governance we support all of these areas globally as a global organization. From a knowledge perspective, then we leverage AWS sort of Bedrock foundational models. And all the knowledge that we use is stored within Genesys. So we're not going out to the internet to find the answer. All the knowledge is stored and secure, and it's based on your data, based on what you've put in. We're not kind of leveraging other customers' data.
Absolutely.
It's all very bespoke to your business. So you only, the knowledge is only as good as that you feed the knowledge base.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
But it is yours. And then to enable that to work for the agents, then we leverage things like large language models and natural language understanding. But again, it's pulling the answers from knowledge that you've built and certified is correct for yourselves.
Yes, I think that's a very important point to get across, that the data that these systems are using is absolutely yours. Yeah, so that's absolutely the case. And over time, if you build on that information, that data, then that's yours. It's absolutely yours to look after. Yeah, it's your levels of privacy, your levels of access. All of these things are absolutely in your control. The system's not going to go off and do some strange sort of hallucination, and then feed that back to your live your live operative. That's not the case at all. There are checks and balances in place to make sure that the information you're using, if it is sensitive, is absolutely protected. Of course it is.
Yeah, we like to classify it as we use supervised learning rather
Yeah,
than unsupervised learning.
sure.
So there is that
Yeah,
human touch
absolutely.
to make sure it is absolutely
Yours.
what it
It's
is.
absolutely secure without any problems with that at all. Doesn't matter if you are in a highly regulated sector, or maybe you want to use this for for compliance issues, those kinds of things. I think if you look at how you build the data and how that feeds into the system, then you'll be fine, because that's a very good foundation to start with, isn't it?
Yes.
And also, that's usually the sort of final question I used to ask my sort of guests is, where if there was something that you would like people to take away, what would that be? Is there something that they can start doing today to get them on the road to, I guess, getting ready for Genesys? Is there something that you feel a lot of businesses you've spoken to could do this, whatever this is, to get them ready and then move their systems forward massively, using systems like Genesys? Is there something maybe on a practical level that businesses could do straight away?
Yeah. So a couple of things is, one, don't wait.
Deep.
Just start trying things and don't be afraid to fail.
Yep.
But you'll start to find good information out.
Yep.
If you're already a Genesys customer, we offer a number of free, what we call tokens.
Okay.
So which allows you to go and try Copilot for free.
Indeed.
On about sort of 5-6 agents typically.
Okay.
So go and switch it on.
Give it a go.
Working with us, with your partner, to leverage it.
Excellent.
And if you're still unsure, then just think about 2 or 3 use cases or journeys which aren't highly complex, but could give you good value return if you could automate to allow customers to self-serve, whatever that process might be.
Yeah, find something small that you can test it with, and see how the system actually operates. And you may be surprised that the level of automation and the level of outcome is really positive. But begin and have a try of these systems, just to see how they would fit with your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
So at the top of this, obviously this webinar, I mentioned that we'll be talking about Agent Copilot and also virtual agents. Now, I'd like to make it clear to everyone that those aren't the same thing. They are quite different. So could you give us an outline of how Agent Copilot and virtual agents sort of differ?
Yeah, absolutely. So virtual agents are relatively new to Genesys.
Uh-huh.
And what they're designed to do is deliver more human-like automated experiences.
Okay.
So where they really excel at is engaging with customers naturally and more conversational.
Okay.
They're available 24/7. They'll be on your website, your app, your mobile. They're good at acting, at scaling quite quickly. If you customers are doing something. You don't need to recruit more agents, so the virtual agents can easily scale, especially if there was, I think about from a travel perspective, when we had the ash cloud disrupts travel, so there's a lot of interactions. You can use virtual agents across both voice and digital interactions. And they're good at understanding the context of the language that I'm asking, so they'll understand sort of regional dialects. And the way we potentially speak to the bot.
Okay.
The Copilot is really there to aid the agent once the customer's engaging with them, and then providing the things that we talked about, next best action. It's good at summarizing those interactions, streamlining processes, and actually then saves the agent having to repeat a lot of manual tasks because the Copilot will give the answer to the agent, and
yeah.
they can just copy it straight into the chat.
Of course.
Now, there is a bit of shared utilization across the two.
Okay.
So things like the knowledge base we've touched on.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
virtual agents and Copilot will use the same knowledge base. Virtual agent can summarize the interaction that I have with that agent,
Okay.
as well as we can summarize it to the Copilot, and we can share those summaries so we can actually see what the virtual agent did and then what the actual agent did.
I'm with you.
So you can then start to build flows models based on those different interactions to actually leverage how can we best serve customers on these particular journeys or these interactions. So the two work really well hand in hand.
Yes, absolutely. But I'd like to get over to everyone that they are completely separate, but they do have an overlap. So you may want to talk to Genesys, and one or two may be ideal for your application. Absolutely both, of course, may have a crossover, but they are quite different in their, I guess, their prime directives. So do
work completely together within all of Genesys.
Absolutely. Just to be clear on how those two things sort of work together and also separately. Well, we've come to the end of this fascinating webinar. I'm sure you can see why Genesys continues to be a global cloud leader in AI-powered experience orchestration. To learn more about how Genesys can help your business transform your CX for the age of AI, please do contact Genesys directly for more information. Join me for part 2 of this webinar, where we'll be considering the importance of social listening, which I think is an interesting element to call center, efficiency, and also to how you can use absolutely these systems to make your systems in place more efficient. So until the next time, it's a goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from Steve.
Thanks all.
Goodbye.